Oh, hello. That's so funny. I thought the waiting loop was on as ever, forever. As ever. Hello, nice to see you, nice. I'm sorry I'm so late. I had a problem with OBS, which is what I stream through. It's not compatible with the latest Apple update, and I wasn't aware of that. My apologies. Luckily, I have somebody here that can help me. I would not fix that by myself, I don't think. Hello. So welcome to the live stream. If this is the first time that you've been live with me, then I shall explain how it works. You can ask questions, and you ask questions through Skype. And my Skype address is LisaCairns12, which should be in the box below. Let me just open Skype now. And you can either call in or you can write a question, whichever you prefer. And yes, that is it. I do these talks every Sunday and Wednesday at 6 p.m. French time. And you're welcome to join free of charge. Just one request is to put a thumbs up if you like the video. Yes. I currently don't have any events, but I have one event that I have planned so far for next year. I'm sure there'll be more, but there's one event that I'll be putting on my website in the next few days, and that is a retreat in Spain on the 23rd of May for 7 days. And it's in the south of Spain, in a very beautiful spot near Cairns and Oragiva. It's in the mountains behind Malaga. And if you want to find out more about that, you can subscribe to my website mailing list, and I'll mail it out, I think, when it's ready. Yes. And also, if you like to book sessions with me, I'm currently booked nearly till the end of January. I think there's a few places left in January. So I don't know how long that is in advance. So just be aware, if you want to book sessions with me and you want to have like a regular session, you need to book a few, like in a row. Otherwise, like if you just book one and then we do that session, more than likely there won't be more sessions available for another 3 months. So what you can do is you can book like 3 or 4 sessions, and then if you find that you don't have anything more to talk about in those sessions, like one session was enough, I'm totally happy with you cancelling the rest of the sessions, and you can do that online 3 days before. But it just hurts my heart when I have a really beautiful session with someone and then I can't offer them another one for like 3 or 4 months. So it's just a warning if you book sessions. And I really can't overdo it or squash too many in, because then I feel like the sessions that I do have, like I can't give my all. Like I really give a lot energetically, so I can only limit myself to a certain amount a week so that I give everybody all my energy and concentration. Yes. That is all. I always like to start the talk with like 5-10 minutes of sitting in silence. I thought today it would also be nice if I laid out my intentions for this talk, after like 7 years of talking about non-duality, sometimes I find it hard to start myself speaking or get myself to speak at the beginning of talks. Sometimes it's easy, but I thought that I could try setting intentions prior to the talk, and this might help like spur out talking. It's just I've talked so much. I don't even think it's that, actually, that I've talked so much. It's just sometimes I find it hard to get myself talking and going. So what could my intention be for today? Let's just feel my body, feel what it says. So my intention today is to share non-duality and to give it everything that I have, to do it with all my heart. Yes. Now we'll just do some silence. Still hello. Hello. I am ready to begin. I just quit a few things to So good evening, my fellow friends. I forgot to share it today. Just sharing it with Facebook. Apologies, everybody. So, what is non-duality? So before I begin anything, I want to explain what non-duality is, just in case you haven't got that already, even though I've said it millions and billions of times. I'm going to say it again, because that's how we tend to learn non-duality, is just hearing it again. It's not that you learn it, it's not that you're going to suddenly get it, but it's the way that it tends to be heard is through it's through the repetition of this, like energetically and mentally to an extent, is listening again and again and again, and then something wakes up. But it's not a personal thing. It's not that you wake up, you as a person that's done this or that, that's good or bad, right or wrong. It's something that happens. And it tends to be like totally immersing yourself into the subject. So what is non-duality? Non-duality is this moment, is what's happening. And in what's happening, there isn't separation. It appears to you that there's separation, but that's only because of what you think, the way in which you've been taught to look at this world. It's not an actuality. There isn't actually somebody there that's separate, experiencing a world that is apart from them. There is only this one energy that's happening. And this one energy is free and alive and awake and radical. And it's not that consciousness is inside the body. Consciousness is the things that are being experienced, the sounds that's being experienced. So what your mind says is, your mind says, I'm somebody that's inside the body and I'm listening to Elisa that's outside of me. Whereas actually, in the direct experience, there's sound happening. And there's not somebody that's listening, there is simply sounding happening. So there's this sound of my voice happening, but there's not actually someone listening to it. And the consciousness is actually in the very sound. It's not inside your head. Like we think, oh, it's going inside our ears, and then I'm hearing inside my head. And we're so convinced that's true, and that's actually what you've been taught. It's not an actuality. Like in your experience, if you shut your eyes, like you maybe can point to a direction in which the sound is coming from, but you don't know where it's being heard. It simply is appearing. Like it's not like it's being heard here, 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 here. It's a happening. And it's the same with everything. So we think that we're looking at the room, that you're looking at that wall behind me, or you're looking at me, and you're inside your body, whereas actually there is only looking happening. So there's just simply my body appearing, and there isn't a consciousness that is conscious of it. There is simply the body, and in the body there's inherent consciousness, and there's not something that is conscious of it. And this consciousness, or this awake presence, is your birthright. You didn't have to wake up in the morning and be like, let me just switch on consciousness. This is me tapping on my imaginary keyboard inside my head, turning on consciousness, and enter, and consciousness. Like, who is conscious of that? So if that is what's happening, who is conscious of that? That consciousness is the birthright. As soon as waking up happens in the morning, which you don't know how you do, there is instantaneously consciousness. And then at some point, there is somebody that pops its little head up and goes, me, I'm conscious. But that isn't who's conscious, because who is conscious of that one that pops up and says, me, I'm a conscious. Who's conscious of that? So there's something that knows that. So that person that's claiming to be everything is appearing in something that's already here and is the birthright, and it's happening instantaneously. And you aren't in control of consciousness. This me that's saying I am conscious isn't in control of consciousness, isn't tapping on a computer somewhere telling consciousness what to do. It is simply experiencing, and it's there. And you can't switch it off. You think you can blow your brains out or slit your throat or jump off a cliff and switch it off, but that's not proven. What you switch off is the body. What you switch off is memories of this life, but whether you switch consciousness off, you don't know. Our experience is that consciousness never leaves. You might think, but where does it go in deep sleep? In deep sleep, it's conscious of nothing, so therefore there is nothing. It's not that consciousness leaves, there's just no appearances in it in order to experience anything. In fact, there is no deep sleep, there's only awakeness again. We can't measure time in deep sleep. Deep sleep is timeless. And also notice how consciousness instantly knows this wall behind me. Let me just make sure my sound and everything's working, you know. Sometimes do these talks and then suddenly find out there's no sound on them. I'm like, oh. So with this wall behind me, notice how it's in consciousness. Like, you're not asking to see that wall. You're focused on me and your attention is on me, but also consciousness knows that wall, knows this chair without labeling it. So you might be labeling me and going, oh, she's doing a fantastic job, or she's not doing such a good job, or I like this, or I don't like that. So you might be thinking all these types of things and judging me and personifying me. But with the wall, there is no thoughts on it. You're not thinking, wall, 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 wall. The wall is a mystery, but yet it's appearing. And that whiteness is appearing, and you're not labeling it, but yet it's there. And it's color, it's mysterious, but it's there, happening. And then the mind comes in and says, white wall, blonde woman, white woman. I don't know if you realize, but us white people are actually pink woman. I think it's just a fear. White people don't want to be called pink because they've got a fear of pink because it's associated with women and babies and unicorns and fluffy toys and slippers, big pink fluffy slippers. So, you know, like half of the race of white people is like, I'm not pink, I am white. But I fully admit that I am pink and a kind of creamy colour, but mostly pink. Yes. Well, somebody's hyper this afternoon, aren't they? I wasn't before this talk. I was just mellow, chilling, and then suddenly I turn on. It's because I gave my attention. I want to communicate it with all my might. And then here we go. So that's non-duality. Did it? Good job. Done. You got non-duality now. So then the next question, the title of this talk, the reason that you clicked, the clickbait, the riveting title is, let's just look, I've forgotten it myself. Is depression an effect of identification? Yeah, okay. That's the talk. A little bit of a boring talk, a bit of, not talk, title, but we shall struggle on through it and try to make it interesting. Is depression an effect of identification? Basically, Lisa doesn't know. Hang on, what's that title? Forgot again. Effect of identification. I don't know what depression is on the whole. You know, lots of doctors and scientists say it's chemical imbalances in the brain. I can just tell you my experience of depression. I don't think I've really been type of personality that experienced extensive depression, but moments of it. And particularly, and there was this period of a lot of emotions being released, this kind of exhaustion that couldn't be bothered to do things. And you maybe could call that a depressed energy, like it was exhausted, but it wasn't something that went on for too long. But one thing that I noticed is that when this energetic shift, was so dramatic, but this realization happened, is it was super energizing. It doesn't mean that I don't get tired, but it kind of really shifted that way of thinking. Like thoughts don't really appear of life is meaningless or life is depressive. It can appear that it's meaningless, but normally as a joke or in a conversation, or maybe if I have to like scrub the kitchen floor, whatever, those types of things, but not really, like not in the way it was before, or what's the point to life. Like it doesn't seem that motivation needs now, from this perspective, to come from a juicy story in the future. Like motivation just comes from motivation, and depression tended to contain a lot of feelings and thoughts which stopped me actually being active. And maybe that is kind of what depression is it's a depression. So rather than being active, you're depressed, like you're pressed down, like there's no air in you, there's no flair in you. So I don't know ultimately what depression is, but from my experience of this subject is that when this shift begins to happen, there is a newfound energy, because a lot of energy in the past went on to neurotic thinking or wrong thoughts or ideas. There was lots of blame or hatred or anger or revenge, whatever it was, or hopefulness, and that's exhausting for the body, and that can really exhaust and tire out the body, and then it can create like what's the point, what's the meaning, and this sort of depressed feeling in the solar plexus. My other experience with depression is that when I lived in an organization, which I'm not allowed to call a cult, but an organization actually who I think people there are really beautiful and I really like them. Their biggest effect on people when people went to stay with them or live with them for like a year or 2 years was people with chronic depression. They could completely get over their depression there, and that fascinated me. And they suspected, and I think so as well, that the reason that is because they're forced into activity, and they're forced into positive thinking, and they're forced into being honest about what they think and feel, and they're forced into relationship. Whereas normally when people have depression in society, all those things tend to go, and people tend to isolate, quit their jobs if they can, go on benefits, like push everything away and try to isolate themselves. Whereas this was like the opposite, and it completely took people out of chronic depression, which chronic depression is said to be incurable. And I was super impressed by this, and I saw it, and I met people, like many people. And this is when I come across people with chronic depression, I always advise them or encourage them to like go and live in an ashram or an environment which forces them back into life. Because the feeling that makes you want to hide is actually the wrong feeling. You actually have to go out. It's like the opposite. So I don't think depression is an effect of identification as such, because ultimately I don't know what it is, and maybe there is this thing of genetic and chemical imbalances. But I do feel that identification exhausts a lot of energy. Like it really takes a toll on the body-mind, because you're generating so many ideas and memes and belief systems and interactions in the world based on the belief that you're someone separate. And this is like running up the stream in a way, because it's the opposite to the way life is, like this belief that you're the doer and you've got to control your life. And also this strong belief in good and bad, that there is something called goodness and badness, and that you're guilty or they're guilty, or you're to blame or they're to blame. And that's important to establish in order to have a functioning society. But we spend way too much time on guilt and blame and shame and pride and expectation. These are teachings that Ramesh Balsekar and Roger Castillo teach. And they say that the effect of identification is these feelings. And I think these feelings to an extent are natural, and then they're meant to be there. You're meant to say this is inappropriate what you did, and so to put blame on other people. But that identification where you really believe it's true and you can't forgive or you can't get over something is exhausting for the system. And also, a lot of the time when people are identified, their identity is trying to stay identified. So what it's doing is it's repeating stories about itself and repeating stories about its environment and other people again and again and again. And it's having these feelings and it's trying to run away from these feelings. And this in itself is exhausting. So you can see that all of these things have the potentiality to lead to depression. But I wouldn't be as far as saying that depression is an effect of identification. I ultimately don't know what depression is or why it arises. But what I do know is that identification is exhausting, or can be exhausting. I'm not drinking coffee if some people think this is why I'm really hyperactive. As I've aged, I've come to realize I can't drink any caffeine products. They don't do well for aging hormonal women. So if there's any other women out there that have hormonal problems, if they're getting towards 40 and their hormones are beginning to change, give up caffeine. It really has bad effects on your hormones. Yes. So I don't drink coffee anymore. It's really terrible giving up at first. For about 3 weeks I had headaches. But actually once you give it up, you don't miss it at all. It's really an addiction. You completely forget about coffee. Or tea, or whatever it is you drink. It really helps setting an intention before the talk. I feel so excited to be talking with you guys and sharing everything I possibly can think of. And so also when I'm giving this talk, like listen to the words, but also like surf my energy as well. Like, what does that mean? It sounds quite weird. Like, imagine like little surfers on my arm and head and nose. But sometimes when you're watching videos, like people are speaking and they've got really dark and depressive energies. Like even if sometimes I watch psychology videos, and there's some psychologists that I really like, but their energy is so dark. By the end of it, I'm like, oh. And so also you can just like surf, like I feel really happy and bubbly and want to share with you. And there's like a energy that you can surf in that. You can kind of like resonate with it. So surf it. Yes. What else? Let's go surfing now, everybody's learning how. Come on, let's safari with me. Boop boop doop boop doop boop doop boop 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 boop. Let's go surfing now, everybody's learning how. Come on, let's safari with me. Everyone's like, what song is that? I know that song. That was my father's favourite song. We weren't really allowed to listen to music in the car, but if we did, this is the songs we would listen to. What else can I tell you about non-duality? Maybe that's enough for tonight. I can't think. So if anyone's got any questions, you're welcome to ask it. If you want to call in, just send me a message saying, can I speak with you live. And remember, if you want to call in, to have your headset with your microphone ready and a good internet connection. Hi, Isabel. I love you. That's sweet. Hi, dear Lisa. Hope you're happy and healthy and your talk would start today. Nice to meet you, dear. Simon. Oh, yeah, sorry I was late today. There's no questions. That's a first. Oh, actually, I think there was a question someone sent on earlier today. Rob. Rob. Hello, Rob. I have a question regarding mental health. Hi, Lisa. This is Rob from New Zealand. Thank you for your pointing. Truly wonderful. Question. For today's live stream. When the person experiences psychotic episodes, manic episodes in their 20s and now on medication, what healing avenues or understanding would you suggest to support? And what is your understanding of what has actually happened? Two things I'm looking at already is Osho chakra meditation and Wim Hof's, the Iceman, breathing meditation. Can you possibly answer this on your live stream today? I may not be able to watch as have 3 girls to get off to school, etc. as it's 6 a.m. Monday here. Love, Rob. Oh wow, 6 a.m. Yeah, I'm really not a mental health expert in any way. I do know a little bit about it. If you've read my book, you'll understand why. Well, non-duality, for sure. Like remembering who you are, no matter what life is pointing to. I remember Alma telling this story. I spent a little bit of time with Alma at her ashrams, and I remember her telling her story about how she told this story how everyone was, this was in India at the ashram, and I hope I get the story right. So everyone was angry with this man who every day kept going into the middle of the square at the ashram and doing a poo. And he just would poo in front of everyone, and they used to get sticks and brooms to like usher him away, and he was really like off his head, like in the sense he didn't really buy into the collective reality that everyone else bought into, and he always like did whatever he felt like doing, and one thing he felt like doing was doing a poo in the square. And one day Alma saw this, and she saw the people working at the ashram like using brooms, not beating him, but ushering him away to get him to leave so he wouldn't poo in the middle of the floor. And she ran out yelling at them saying, "Put your sticks down, put your sticks down, shame on you. He is way more enlightened than any of you people put together. I'm way more free than any of you put together." And I thought that was really beautiful. Like one thing that seems to happen with waking up is questioning all your concepts and all your beliefs and what you take to be you. And what I take from that story is that, you know, this guy that was doing this, like he was totally above and beyond like social convention. I'm not recommending to everyone to go and take a turd in the middle of your town square. You're most probably get arrested. But like what it's trying to point to is that he's totally beyond that convention. Like there's something in him that's totally surrendered in that moment. Like to just acting out what's appearing in his body. And that's how I was taught too. I mean, I was taught very radically. I sometimes think that I dilute things on the internet a bit to try and make it less shocking, and also to not expose myself too much. Like, it's quite vulnerable being on the internet. Like, let's just be clear, what am I exposing myself to is exposing myself as a complete and utter Looney Tune, which I am. And I have to admit that I love going for a poo in nature. It's very satisfying. I don't do it in town square. I try to abstain from doing that. Of course I don't do that, but I do go out in the nature and I really enjoy that. There's something very satisfying and beautiful about it. Although Khaleesi always has a tendency to want to eat it, which is very repulsive. So that does put me off wanting to go into nature. She's like, oh, Mum, you're feeding me from the wrong end today. Sorry, I'm being naughty today. I'm exposing my true character on the internet. I tend to hold back from being a bit like this on the internet because I don't want to expose myself too much. Yeah, so if you already thought I was a bit crazy, you've only seen maybe a half of it. And it's all these conventions that you have around that being disgusting or that being inappropriate, me being too gross. These are all conventions of your mind and in a way limitations. And yes, after you've seen them all to be illusion, then you can go back to having your social norm, but it's breaking down those boundaries of what you think is right or wrong or good or bad, and then ultimately coming back to just acting out what God or life wants. And that's really radical and really crossing all boundaries of what humans believe, because it's taking away from what our concepts of good and bad are and just giving it to God, like to what your impulse is. Like right now, right here, what are your natural impulses to do? Whether it be to be like, or to fart in front of your partner. Like, it always shocks me when people have been with their partner for a very long time and not farted in front of them. Like, if you've never farted in front of your parents, I'm sure you've farted in front of your parents, in front of your partner, I think that you have to do that. I think this is very anal to not have done that your whole entire time. I think you have to be prepared to totally expose yourself. Like, that's so super vulnerable to fart in front of people. I used to love hanging out with the Buddhists because they never had any shame about that. They'd just be sitting there and they'd all be going one after the other. Like, totally letting go of everything that you think and feel. And then the ultimate one is that you are somebody sitting in that seat. You're not. This is complete lunacy. This is complete craziness. You aren't someone sitting in that seat. There is only life experiencing itself. And that person that comes up and says, it's inappropriate to poop in the town, is only an appearance. It's not who you are. And it's a social appropriateness, but it's not who you are. And just think about all the judgments or ideas you have. And that's part of the character. That doesn't have to go away. But it's questioning that and seeing that that's not truth. That's not who you are. That not farting in front of your partner, farting in front of your partner is not going to take away your happiness. Because if you believe that you're this person, then it becomes so serious, and like farting in front of them becomes shameful. And it's like, I'm a bad person. I'm ashamed. I don't want to be seen like that. And who is this image that you've got it for yourself? In the moment, it's just sound happening. It's just appearances happening. And so what? It's funny. Like, it's a funny thing that life invented into us, that we make these funny sounds from our back end. We make funny sounds from our front end as well. And in the moment, it's just happening, and then embarrassment appears, and then you're on to the next thing. Like, just here. And the identity is always like holding on to that and like, oh God, that's the worst thing that's ever happened to me. And it's holding this image of you and holding on to being something. You aren't anything. That's God's fart. That's God's view. That's God's poo in the middle of the ashram. It's not you. This idea that you're doing the actions and you're responsible for your life isn't you. Oh, okay, so we're going back to what is good medication, what is good after you've had these types of things. Yeah, I just went off on one then. Yeah, so basically, I don't know what is good to do, but what I do know is what you're doing is absolutely perfect. It's all God's will. And just trusting that. So the urge comes up to do Osho, the urge comes up to sit in silence, the urge comes up to listen to me, and that is perfect. And it's all a journey to waking up. There's not a journey to hell and to waking up. It's all a journey to waking up. It's just some stories are longer than others. The only way to go is home. You've got no other options, because that's what the world is made from, is home. So even though you've got this daydream that you're in the past or in the future, all you've ever got is home. So you can run around in these illusory worlds, but this is all you ever really have. So that's the only place you can ever really go. You're always safe in yourself, which is this moment, which is here. Okay, so there I've successfully got out of answering your question in any direct way, as I don't really know that much about mental health, but so now I'm just going to move on. Or I'm not trained in mental health. I do actually know a lot about mental health. I'm not a trained expert. Hey, Nick. Hey, Hendrik. Hi, Lisa. Once, during meditation, the words came, "You never existed," in German. Entering into non-duality, I know that, and did experience with direct experience, and did exercises with the direct experience of thoughts, emotions, which cannot have a life of their own. Still, there is a feeling of separation. Any advice to that? Love, Hendrik. I like your name, Hendrik. We have Hendrik. No, we don't have that in English. It's very nice sounding. Once, during meditation, the words came, "You never existed," in German. Entering into non-duality, I know that, and did experience with direct and did exercise with direct experience of thought, emotion, which cannot have a life of their own. Yeah, normally for most people there's lots of waking up experiences that happen, and then for most people it's like there's these waking up experiences and then a gradual fading of the self, and then after that, once it's been sort of established that who is looking and experiencing isn't you, then there is an integration of that into the person, and that process is endless and never ends. Just said that twice. Yeah. I wouldn't worry too much about where you are or where you're going. I would worry more, or not worry, but I would pay more attention to what's actually happening now. And maybe when you ask that question, there's a feeling like you're in the wrong place, or there's a feeling like you want to get somewhere. And just see that for what it is, that these are illusions appearing. This is mental activity that's dragging you into story. And there's maybe a feeling in the body, in the heart, that you're not in the right place. And just allow that feeling in and welcome it. And see that that feeling also isn't true. You're not in the wrong place. It's simply a feeling appearing in this moment, and this moment is home. This moment is everything you ever wanted. Hi, Zenbik. Zenobi. I'm sorry if I don't know how to pronounce your name. It's a beautiful name. Zenobi. Zine B, maybe. Zymbe. I don't know how you say it. Hi Lisa, I've been trying to give up smoking but couldn't. I know it's a nasty habit and it's bad for me, but I can't stop. I gave up so many times and then started smoking again. I feel hopeless. I feel like I need that dopamine release in my brain. It just helps me take the edge off. I don't know what to do. Any insights you could share? Thank you very much. Love you. My friend was a very strong smoker, and she recommends this one book. If you remind me after the talk, I'll ask her and then I'll send it to you. But firstly, from my perspective, I would address your view of smoking. So if you've got a difficult emotion going on, so say if you feel angry, the worst thing that you can do is hate the anger and try and push the anger away. It's almost like a falling in love with that anger and allowing it in presence and loving it and nurturing it. And I would use the same principle with smoking. Telling yourself again and again that it's a nasty and bad habit is bad for you in itself. We don't know how strong our minds is. Science is only beginning to contemplate the idea of quantum physics and the possibility that it is that which looks at particles which is determining the particles. I mean, there's so many complex theories in quantum physics. I really can't tell you, and I'm sure if a quantum physicist is listening, they're telling me I'm saying it wrong. But basically, we don't know how life is working. We've been taught a certain way, but that comes from maybe a deluded perspective. So you don't know actually if smoking is bad for you, or if your hatred for smoking and your dislike for it and your wish not to be doing it and your rejection of it is what's unhealthy for you. You don't know. That science proves that smoking is bad for you, but did it ever do tests of people that are in love with smoking and love it and think really positively every time they smoke, compared to those that smoke and are indifferent to it, and those that smoke that are always experiencing anxiety and depression? Did they ever look at that and test that? So my first thing to you would be to see smoking in a different light. You've been told it's unhealthy from you by specific experiments. So what they say in Chinese medicine, or what they said when I was being taught Chinese medicine, was that if the body is balanced, so a lot of the masters used to smoke, and the students would go, but how can you smoke? It's bad for you. And the master would say, if the body is balanced, then the body can digest that smoke. And that hopelessness, I'm sure that hopelessness that you feel for it is worse for you than the actual smoking. So then I would look at that hopelessness and what other areas in your life. Is that a habit for you, that hopelessness? Where do you feel that hopelessness in your body? Is there other times that you get into despair and hopelessness? Is it now just a new obsession, a new way to project your hopelessness onto something else? And what happens when you're hopeless? Does that make you apathetic? What's the result of hopelessness? How has it affected your life to date? What does that feel like? Did your parents have it? Do your parents experience hopelessness? Was it something you were taught? Your grandparents? Were you brought up in this environment where if you couldn't complete something, it was hopeless, it was pointless, and a depressive kind of attitude towards it? Thank you for your question and being so open. I wanted to say your name again, but I can't because I don't know how you say that. Zimp, zimp, zoomp, zeeb. Sounds very beautiful though. Ernest, keep coming. Yeah, the reason that I hold back on certain things is because exposing yourself on the internet is a really big thing, and I'm happy to do these talks, and I really love it, sharing non-duality, and I feel really honoured that there's this platform to do that. But it's also quite a big thing, sharing yourself on the internet. It's not so much about what people think of me. It's more to do with it's more to do, I think, with that this subject's already quite alternative, and it's already really far out there, and I feel reluctant to say this. I don't fully trust the internet itself and what Google's algorithms are doing, and like how they're using that information about people. Like algorithms, I think, can tell what you're speaking about or subjects that you're speaking about, and as that improves, like I don't fully trust it. Like I love the internet, but I also think the internet is dark as well, and I think I don't really fully trust how humans deal with that information. But that's maybe my darkness. Maybe if I release those thoughts, then maybe I'll be willing to share more, or maybe it's really wise. It's unknown, that part. Like not to like fully expose yourself on the internet. It's a weird place, the internet. And maybe you've not thought about these things because you've never exposed yourself properly on the internet. But once you've been doing it for like 10 years, you learn a lot of things about exposing yourself on the internet. Hi, Lily. So I don't mean to like say that I'm being fake. I'm being as honest as I can be within the provisions, within my own provisions, really. Like, so I'm genuine, but I'm a bit more loopy in real life, like a bit of a Looney Tune. Hi, Lisa. Do you think, I know you most probably are thinking, oh my God, could she be more loopy? But I am. Do you think there's some sort of soul evolution taking place right now because of all the divisiveness going on in politics? Since Trump was elected in America, everyone seems to be getting more and more polarized and isolated from anyone with an opposite opinion. And there's such a different energy here. I feel scared and uncomfortable. I think everything will be balanced out ultimately, but that's my experience now. Hey, Lily. Thanks for your question. I love that name, Lily. Lily. Sounds so beautiful. Lily. Yeah, it's happening in Europe as well. I don't know what it's like in the rest of the world, but it's all becoming more polarized. I remember saying to my dad, like in 2009, that I really thought the resolution for society was to give them all the information. And when people see all the information, like so when they have the internet and they have access to information, then this will create peace. And then I realized lately that that's not the case. You give them more information and they just become more polarized and more set in their belief systems. It's quite ironic. I didn't see that coming. I don't really know what's happening in society. It's really interesting how polarized we're becoming. I think there maybe is a bit of a bumpy time for us coming as everything becomes more and more polarized. But in the end, I think it will sort itself out, because it's like, it's going to like the opposites of good and bad. And everyone else thinks the opposite is bad and they're good. Like, so the Trump people think they're the good people and they're saving the planet. And then you call it Democrats, we call it Labour in England. The lefties think they're right. And and they're going to save the world, and it's kind of getting more and more extreme, and then at some point maybe those two extremities will collapse, and then what's left? One of our biggest illusions after you and me is good and bad, or good and bad. Like good and bad plays so much of a part in our society, like what's good and what's bad. And it's such an illusion, because who is acting? Like, so we all blame Trump for the way he is, but it's actually the same God that's creating you and moving me. And we blame him and we say he's a really bad person. We don't really know Trump that well in Europe. For England, if you're British, we've got this person called Boris Johnson, which is just like Trump. And he too is the movement of God. Like everything that he does and speaks is the movement of the divine. And that to the mind is so radical. And that to me was, when I was waking up, one of the greatest teachers my teacher gave to me was this idea of what's good and bad. Being an empath, I have a strong sense of what's right or what's wrong or good or bad. And him showing me that in the end, we don't know. It's what's happening. It's what life is creating. And there isn't actually a separate person that's acting. It doesn't mean that people don't take responsibility for actions. That's what happens, is people take responsibility. But on the ultimate, we don't know why things are appearing in their apparent what's that word? The apparent combination? No, I forgot what that word is. Apparent manifestation. We don't know why that's happening. And if you look at it from a bird's eye perspective, like if you look at it from the whole of humanity, like to us it seems like really terrible, these people taking the lead and trying to lead our society that have so much hate in their heart. But if you look at it from the entire creation, it's like a tiny, tiny, tiny drop of sand in the whole of eternity, like a tiny little speck. It's so small. And I know it feels so big. One thing I would recommend is like also stop watching TV and like the news reports about it and social media that's reporting about it. I think that's another way, because also we're not exactly sure that the media is a true thing. It could be whole conspiracy, like we're all sitting at home believing this is how our society is run, but really it's run by like big massive computers and there is no politics, like everything is decided by a computer. It could be. We're not 100% positive that these politicians aren't just an act like in the Truman Show. Could be. Thanks, Hendrik. Hi, Carmela. Love and gratitude to Lisa. Your definition between responsibility and the doer was very helpful. All that flows through you is so helpful. Oh, nice, Carmela. Happy to hear. Simon. Dear Lisa, I had a talk with a friend. It ended in this question. If there's no good or bad, why then do I feel the urge to go towards the light and not the darkness? If there's no good or bad, isn't darkness equivalent choice? I don't know what you mean by that. Isn't darkness a good equivalent choice? We're always swimming towards the light. When we come out of the vagina and when we go into death, we swim towards the light. I wouldn't be so sure that people are always swimming towards the light. When you really understand the unconscious, it all becomes really blurred. Like there's so much detail to your unconscious. Like I don't want to talk too much about myself, but Like I know that when I was younger, I used to be attracted towards fear. Like I was traumatized by fear when I was younger, and then I was attracted to it. So I don't know if people are always swimming towards the light. I think like attracts like, like attracts like, and if you are experiencing depression and darkness, then you're drawn towards depression and darkness. Intellectually, you want light, because intellectually you know that's pleasure, but unconsciously your body is going towards that which it resonates with. Thanks for your question. Hi, Roland. Hi, Lisa. Is it normal that you lose interest in what was important to you before the shift? For example, material things or status, and also relationships and all the usual drama. Thank you for your answer. Yeah, for sure. Because most of the time, those things are about trying to find home. So you're projecting onto a relationship that when you get that, you'll get home. You're not conscious and saying, I'll get home, but that's the feeling you're hoping for. The same with the material things, status. You always project when you get there, you'll rest. You'll get to this place of rest. And then when you begin to really see that it's not in that, then there does begin to be a loss of interest in that. There can be this phase of being depressed also because there's no other impulses that come up. So you feel like you're walking through the desert, like you don't know which way to go. So there's this feeling of being lost. Sometimes that feeling of being lost is also because you've not tuned into what it is you truly want. There is what you truly want there, but you've told yourself you can't have it or you're not worthy of having it. And you don't know what natural wants are. And they're very subtle. And you've always been looking for these big fireworks and explosions. And then these subtle feelings of what you want, like eating a good meal or talking with friends or sitting quietly, is ignored. Thanks, Roland. Hi, Chris. Your questions disappeared when I accepted you. Maybe if I send you a message, they reappear again. Yes. Hi, Lisa. Please now ask you a question. Why can all you enlightened guys all be so seemingly unshakably sure? All us enlightened guys. I'm a woman, aren't I? Yes, I'm today definitely a woman. Maybe you wake up one day next week and realize, oh man, how stupid I was, like many other times before. Thank you very much. Would that not be unshakably not possible? Would that be unshakably not possible? Again, thank you. This hasn't got anything to do with the mind. That's why there is certainty here. I don't know about the other enlightened guys, but maybe you're talking about just the men and not the females that are expressing the subject. But as a female, coming from a female form, the reason that is so sure is because it's not my mind that's sure. So you're right. If it was the mind, then you'll get it and lose it and get it and lose it. And you're totally right in that. And I do now, like even my way of expressing it, I wake up and I think, oh, that's a shit way of expressing it. And then there's another way that can come through. And there's an evolution of speaking about it and a change and admitting I was wrong and then doing that again. But on the ultimate subject of non-duality, there's absolute conviction because it's seen and it's not human. It's not something that can be defined into words and can be right or wrong. It's this, and you can't get this wrong. It's so simple. It's this. So yes. But with the guys, I was making fun of you, and I have to apologize because for years I was saying guys, and then somebody called me out on it. And I realized how appropriate it is to say guys, including everybody. So I'm mocking you, but I'm just as guilty. That's been a habit, trying to get myself out of saying that. Hi, Gemma. I have a question. I am a personal coach and therapist, and I've been working as a freelancer for 10 years. Since I started to read and listen to talks about non-duality, I feel I'm not able to do any sessions because I listen to people's problems under the umbrella of non-duality, and I cannot do a session as I used to. The result is that now I have no sessions. Well, it wasn't a question, it's something I wanted to share with you. I think it's a misunderstanding of non-duality, because I do sessions, and a lot of the time in the sessions I speak about non-duality maybe 10 or 20% of the time, and the rest of the time I'm talking about personal problems. So I think that your mind is confused between the healing of the character and non-duality, and there's nothing wrong with talking about the healing of the character. The healing of the character to me is like going to the doctors if you've got a broken bone, or if you've got cancer, or if you've got a bladder infection, and receiving medicine. And that's the same with the character. There's wise ways to live in this world, and there's really stupid, idiotic ways to live in this world. And there's all types of relationship dynamics and all types of feelings. And I think that it's really profound, people getting to know on a deeper level what it is they feel and how it is they interact in life. And most people are really unconscious of that and getting to know the unconscious. But then seeing that all of that is being experienced and who you truly are is beyond that. And that's what you're really looking for. So when I work with people, I talk to people about their personal problems and also how they identify with that and the seeking. And then I also point back to like 10 or 20% of the time that none of that is who you are. But when you're identified with that, then the seeking evolves, and then this belief that you are going to find happiness in future events. And then I look at, why they do certain things and why certain feelings arise. For example, if somebody finds that they're experiencing a lot of anger towards their mother, and they really dislike their mother and they can't bear being around their mother, then what I'll do with them is I'll first of all point out that on the ultimate level, nothing that happens in life is creating your happiness and unhappiness. So your mother behaving in a certain way and your reaction to her isn't what's creating your true unhappiness. That's creating pain in the flow. But what's really creating that unhappiness is the belief that you are that character and that your feelings are true and that your mother is taking away freedom from you. So I point back to who you are, and then I'll look at that feeling. So I'll say, where do you experience the anger in your body? This is how I normally do sessions. It changes with everyone, but this is my rhythm. So where do you experience that anger? In what place? Sometimes people can't experience it in their body, and they say, I experience it in my head. So then I'll say, okay, so what type of thoughts do you think towards your mother? And then it might be like, oh, she always puts me down, she makes me feel caged, she's not very nice to me, she's not supportive. And then from that, I'll know, from the thoughts they're expressing, I'll tend to know where they're feeling that, if it be in the heart, because your chakras have particular feelings and thoughts in them. So if it's like a suppressive feeling, then it's maybe the heart or the solar plexus. So then I'll get them to rub that area and get them to talk more about their mum. Normally, I can begin to get people to feel and relate their thoughts to their body. Once they begin to experience the sensation in their body and feel it in the body, then I'll get them to go deeper in it. So is there other relationships you feel this in? Do you feel this in areas of your life? Do you remember feeling this as a child? And then I'll go into what are the deep thoughts in it, and I'll get them to rub it often. And maybe what they come back to is, like, underneath all this anger is this total vulnerability that they want to be loved. It could be all sorts of reasons, but maybe it's that. But I'll slowly get them to get them, their self, to acknowledge what they want is their mother to love them. This is just an example. So I'll step them through, like, I hate her, and get her to speak out all the anger and all the gross stuff and dislike and hurting. And then eventually they might come to, what I want is my mother to love me. And that's a complete change from this anger, this anger, this blaming, this pushing away. And then I want my mother to love me. And then I'll get them, when they've got to that vulnerability, to imagine the mother loving them and what that feels like, and changing that vibration of that chakra. And that to me is really healing for the body and healing for the chakra. And then at the same time, I'll point out to them that that is appearing in who they are, and that isn't who they are, that doesn't define who they are. And that really all the freedom comes from themselves. Like, it's them that creates all their mental disorder towards their mother, and it's them that can change it. And to me, when they change their vibration to their mother, then the relationship is naturally going to change. When they're hating their mother, they're going to get back hate. But when they begin to love the mother and they see what they want is love from the mother, then the interaction will really change. When you walk in that front door to see your mother, and you're not hating her and pushing her away, but you're in this place of, I want you to love me, that will completely change your energy and completely change your response to her. And I do believe in like attracts like, so more than likely your relationship will begin to grow from that. But it's so seeing this healing the body and not being lost in the idea that freedom comes from the mother behaving a certain way, or freedom comes from not having the blame anymore. Like, just seeing that you can heal the body and you can change the vibration of the body, but that's not your ultimate freedom, because life is unpredictable and crazy and all types of things can arise. Your ultimate freedom is who you are. But when you're totally identified and totally suffering and having lots of contraction in the body, then how can you possibly hear that you're beyond that? You're that which is experiencing that. So to me, the reason that you can't do sessions anymore is because you're not hearing non-duality properly, and you're mixing up, more than likely, the person as being someone that wakes up. Or you're maybe into hardcore non-duality where you're totally rejecting everything about the person. Thank you for your question. That's a nice question. Hi, Johnny. Hey, Lisa. Thank you for doing these. As for good and bad, I feel like you can question anybody on their respective axiomons, beliefs, and then give them non-judgmental, concentrated information on what's happening. So I have hope that I can change people. You're having some sort of like malfunction on your technology here, mind, in that respect. How is this illusory? Thanks again, Jonathan. Well, first of all, whose mind are you changing? Like, in one way, you're changing your mind. There isn't subject and object. Like, so everything that you experience is in one mind, is in one consciousness. So the idea that you're changing someone else's mind and that you're the fixed person in relationship with that other person is illusion. And then secondly, the only thing I would get you to question is, for what motive are you trying to change people's minds? Like, why do you do that? And just seeing if there's any seeking in that. If you're trying to change people's minds because you believe at some point in the future it will give you freedom, or that in some way they're taking away freedom from you. Thanks, Johnny. Chris, thank you so much for your answer. Thank you. How stupid. Sorry for my English. Thank you. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to shame you when I was saying guys, Chris, in any way. Like, yeah, now I feel sad that I did that, because it's so hard speaking another language. You know, when I try to speak French with people, I'm just praying that they just like, they don't try to like get me to say it perfect, and they just try to like piece out words that they can get from it. Like the other day when I spoke to someone, you can't do this in languages. If you've never learned a language, you can't directly translate like word for word. And the other day I just directly translated word for word and then stood there like, and luckily the person was very gracious and kind of pieced it together. So yeah, thanks, Chris, for putting yourself out there and being vulnerable and speaking in another language, or your second language. I was just having fun. Hi Lisa, is it normal? Depression could also mean deep rest that is urgently needed. Yeah, depression could also be a way of like reflecting back that that your energy levels are out of whack. Deep rest from the search for recognition, attention and love, or whatever appears outside in the world. But there's also possibility. Just an idea. Yeah. It's also like an alarm bell. Because the thing about depression is it does make you begin to ask, like, what's the point? What's the meaning? Why am I doing this? But a lot of the time people just get stuck in that and they don't actually want to hear answers to it. They just want to stay in that the feeling. It's not that they want to, it's that they can't get out of feeling that. But if you're willing to ask those questions from depression and really be willing to hear the answer, then I think there's something really beautiful in that. Deanna. Hi Deanna. Dear Lisa, I have a problem on a personal level. It's about dependence on other family persons like friend or partner. At the moment, I'm in a relationship that is often in a separation from. He works very far from home and there is a month working and then he comes home for a week or two, or sometimes more. The thing is that after he leaves, I feel apart again and again and again. I fall apart again and again and again, and it seems it gets worse with the years. I spent a lot on looking in the problem and meditating and working on it, but it seems like I'm looping and spinning, always feeling lack of support and feeling scared of doing everything by myself. And I know I am everything and it's clear on ultimate level, but on the personal it can be overwhelming. Thanks, Tiana, for your openness and vulnerability. Yeah, I can understand. Like on the ultimate level, who is the person that's looping again and again? It's like a habit that's appearing. And more than likely it's not so much about the thinking, it's something stuck in the chakras. And I can't tell you what that is. It's something we'd have to work through together privately. Like I wouldn't want to expose you on the internet doing that. But there's most probably something in one of the chakras. So like a lack of love in one of your chakras, a sense of vulnerability in one of your chakras. Maybe something from childhood, like the way your mum related with you as well, or your dad, like what happened after your birth. And then you're going through that trauma again and again, but it's not true. There is most probably a human element to it, like we do have these human bodies, and if you've got kids as well, then it is hard to survive by yourself if they're constantly away from work. So there is maybe a human element to it, but the reason that it's looping is an attachment. It's heart and solar plexus. Yeah. And there's so many reasons why that could be appearing. It depends on what your past is and what your history is. And it's just seeing that and staying with that. And then also moving into what it is you want. And you can have anything that you want. That's how you stop the looping. But you have to, first of all, got to the bottom of that problem. Like, so by him leaving, what it makes you feel on the base level, whether it's fear or loneliness or existential despair. And I have to speak with you to work that out. And then you begin to move it into the positive, what it is you want, and begin to imagine that and allow yourself to have what it is you want. If it's more time with him, then trust that if you vibrate on that, you want more time with him, that it will come true, but not from a needy place, from a beautiful place, from a grounded place, from a loving and expanded place. I don't know if there's so much that we can do just writing like that. You can see you can writing. I would like to speak to you about it. Do I need to book a session? I would advise booking a session because I don't want to expose you on the internet. I've done this for years now, and I'm happy to talk more superficially with people, even though most people think I'm speaking really deep. But I don't want you to say things about your past and then it to be on the internet forever. So booking a session is more than likely best, but I'm booked for months and months. Yeah. So I just don't want to do that with people on the internet anymore. I don't want to cause anyone damage, and on the ultimate level there is no damage, like everything is good, but I don't want to push people too far. You know, you can re-traumatize people by doing certain things. Like when people are being vulnerable, they're very fragile. But thank you, Deanna, for your question. Hi, Joanna. Hi, Lisa. What is your opinion about channeling messages from ascendant masters or other spirits? Why not? I don't think time is linear. I think time is just the way humans are seeing things, and I think there's most probably lots and lots of different dimensions. So I'm really not opposed to channeling at all. Like, I think it's possible channeling from future, from past, for people that have died. And I don't, like, it could even be that there is like another realm that appears after bodies die. So like if your father's died, like they're in another realm. But that doesn't contradict non-duality, because they're not a person, they're a bundle of energy. I assume that the bundle of energy, Lisa, dies with this body, but it could be this energy of Lisa goes on to another realm in another form, but she's not the experiencer. She's like a machine. So it's like this machine has gone into a different realm, you could say. It's consciousness that's experiencer. So it's not actually somebody that's moved on to these different realms. It's not actually somebody that you're channeling. It's a bundle of energy that you're challenging, which isn't alive. What's alive and what's watching is consciousness. But I'm really not opposed to it. I think it can be really nice when somebody's died to go to a channeler and do all these healings. And if you read the Tibetan Book of the Dead, and like I was heavily influenced by Buddhism, then they have lots of different realms after you die. But a lot of Buddhists don't believe in reincarnation. They believe in rebirth, which is the same of what I'm saying, is that it's energy that passes on. It's not an entity that passes on, or a separate entity that passes on, but an energy. Gemma, thank you for your explanation, Lisa. Thanks, Gemma. Thank you from the bottom of your heart. See you at this holy moment. Yes. I would like it to be. It's true. Yes, true. Thank you. Maybe something opens for me. Yeah, nice, Gianna. Simin, I love the concept of shifting problems and see it from a different point of view, the love and consciousness point of view. Thank you, dear Lisa. God bless you. God bless you, Simon. That's really sweet saying God bless you. Okay, guys, that's the end of the questions today. And I also really need the toilet, so I'm going to call it off. Call it off. The end. I apologize about being late for anyone that was here on time. Unfortunately, I didn't OBS my program that I use to use YouTube to stream with wasn't compatible with the update, and I didn't realize this before. So my apologies. But normally it's 6 p.m. French time. Thanks, guys. I wish you everything. I really wish you everything. Thank you. Goodbye.